Hello, everybody, and welcome back here for another conversation on artificial intelligence. And we have Jim Schreitmueller, the CEO of Reveal, here today with us for a very interesting conversation. So just a few seconds about Reveal. Reveal is a super interesting company. We go back again in the realm of computer vision, but this time, this is not only technology, it's much more than that. There is innovation all over the places here. We have business innovation, we have technology innovations, and we have even the convergence of artificial intelligence and blockchain. So with that said, hello, Jim, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Paolo. Thanks for having me.
Oh, that's my pleasure. So I am tasked with this, with this task of asking an initial bad question. So let's do the following. You go back to your high school and you're talking to your high school friends. And they are, they're all 16 or 17 years old, but now you're a little bit more mature and you had to tell them about your life and your professional life. So what would you tell them?
Is it me being, 15, 17 years old again? Or is it me being an old guy going back?
You are the same guy as you are today, but you're going to talk to them as they were at that time.
Yeah, so let's assume that I have gathered all these experiences and gone back in time and said, hey, guys, I'm back and I want to tell you what I've been doing, that kind of thing. I think in that case, it's really all about describing a range of experiences. I've been on an amazing journey. It's still going on. I think it will be until I get thrown out of the world. But it's really been an adventure for me. My experiences have really reflected a range of broad interests that have allowed me to explore things and really have an impact on business using a set of skills that, if I were to explain this to people, it's something that really is acquired. It's not taught. It's a set of skills that evolves through experience. They involve kind of a part technologist that understands software and data, part product creator that connects disparate dots and pieces and puts puzzles together. Maybe part empathetic marketer who understands what matters most to customers, and even part sales leader that understands how to make money. And even operationally, maybe part operations manager that helps prioritize what needs to get done and in what order to complete a mission. And having done that, I've really explained how I've done it, but what I've done gets into many different vertical markets that has really exposed me to the different range of interests and problems that need to be solved and opportunities that can be conquered. And it's an amazing thing. I will say that going back in time, if I were to tell people all over again, do it yourself, to learn that you can be a serial entrepreneur and anything is possible. And in this amazing world with software.
So that's very interesting. I'm not sure they would get the operational part and the operational management, but I'll give it to you. Okay, let's stay on the time machine here, and let's suppose that you meet your sweetheart of that time. Who is Jim today? Like, what would you tell about yourself?
Yeah, well, I think I'd say, first of all, if it didn't bore her to tears, I'd say, I'm really just a serial entrepreneur and adventurer, explorer of new ideas and taking them to market. That's really what I've done in kind of my stock and trade. Having done this with, a number of companies I can't even remember or count anymore, but probably more than a dozen in the course of my career. And it's really a fun thing.
So very good. So for whoever is listening or watching from outside Silicon Valley, this is pretty much a type of person that you find almost only here in the world. And so you jump from one startup to another, from one idea to another one. So Jim is one of those people. And now the last love of his life is Reveal. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, okay. Well, Reveal is kind of a fun company. The genesis was taking something you see on television and allowing you to purchase it at that moment of inspiration. Right when you see something, give you an outlet, and the outlet was using image recognition to allow you to point your mobile phone right at the TV and get more information about that, allow you to buy what you see. That was what kicked the whole thing off. And now it's expanded beyond that to say that anywhere you're inspired by media, and in this context, brand-related media for products and services, allow people to interact and categorically explore, learn, and buy. And what we found is that there's a lot of people that want more information about a product that might involve an interaction by watching videos, reading reviews, even chatting with a brand. You can do all kinds of things in addition to purchasing a product. But we do this now from print, like the magazines and catalogs, even direct mail pieces, to product labels, to out-of-home ads you see on the street or in a train station, for example. Beyond television, we do television as well. And now even clickable OTT video, over-the-top video, or streaming video that you're watching on your computer. Give you that secondary experience as you're watching, whether it's a program or an ad, and being able to click it to get more information about the product you're purchasing. And all that becomes measurable.
So to make it like in an analogy, if someone of our viewers has ever watched the movie on Amazon, so you have all those explanations about the actors. You can basically click the button and then you have all the explanation about the actors and their stories, whatever movies they have done. And here is a little bit more sophisticated in the sense that you don't do it only on the movie. You can do it on the movie, but you can do it on printed media while you're reading a newspaper or a magazine. You can do it on online products. You can do it also when you watch a video. And basically you get more information about whatever people are wearing or products that are in the scene that you're looking at.
Yeah, so actually Amazon is doing that today. They have a feature, I think, in their Amazon Prime stream program, video content, that allows you to click on the video and it connects to the actor's IMDb database. So you can do exactly that. You can learn about who's on the screen at that particular time in the video stream. And we go one step further. We're not providing that service, but we go one step further for any kind of content that someone gives us to allow them to click on it and purchase what they see or learn more about the products or services. So fundamentally, whether it's the actors connecting to the IMDb database or learning more about whatever's going on in the scene, about the subject matter, not beyond the actors, or even the products that you see that you want to buy, it all is a clickable experience related to where you are in the video, and we provide that framework. We actually have a plugin for that. So you can do this across any network.
So let's look for a second on the money part of this. How does the business model work? Who are actually the customers? Like who is interested to take this technology and where does the technology go actually?
Sure, I'll give you some examples. So we have a museum, our first museum experience up, for example, at the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've got some pretty neat exhibits. And if you're interested in those, if you're in that part of the world and you want to know about famous Oklahomans, this is the place to go. And by pointing your phone in an exhibit, you can get information about Blake Shelton or Carrie Underwood and other more notable people that are on display there with exhibits. Learn about their bios, watch video interviews, all kinds of information. I think they even have the ability to purchase products or merchandise from them. So it gives you a full faceted experience, and that's the museum paying for that. In a magazine, for example, recently we just did for Ski Magazine, we did a cover-to-cover e-commerce experience that allows you to point your phone at a page that displays products. It's their annual gear guide, for example. So it's got all the new products for boots and skis and everything that a winter aficionado would want to look at. And those are people that are pretty sophisticated buyers. And the products are technical, so they're looking for information about them. So they point the phone at it, scan the page, they get information. They can also purchase the product. And if you scan the cover, you get all the products. So it's kind of an interesting layout for them. And they paid us for that. And in turn, they charge the brands. So typically in a magazine, they would then, they sell ads and they charge their customers and they charge them for that service. We're also working with brands now to take this into retail stores through their agencies and the brands directly that would have merchandising displays that would become interactive. So I can't tell you who, but there's a number of major brands coming up that want to do that inside retail, including the retailers themselves that have apps. that can use our SDK to allow people to point at not just merchandising displays, but even product labels. That's where all this is headed. So there's a very vast range of use cases, all of them paid for by those that are trying to sell their wares, I guess you want to call it.
So that's certainly clarifying. Just looking at a little bit more on the business model, do you think that this basically it's a completely new service and it is a completely new position in the value chain? So it looks like something that is in between the brands and the retail that could go directly on the retail, but it seems to be a new piece in the value chain. Do you envision that this will stay so, or do you envision some level of consolidation for this type of businesses / technologies?
Well, if you look at it, image recognition in a mobile device hasn't really is limited in how it's taken off. If you go back just a few years, there are a number of companies that had image recognition capabilities, and they required downloading a unique app. And let me back up even. Yeah, they required downloading an app, and many of those were based on scanning codes, QR codes. And not everybody understood what a QR code was 5 years ago, what to do with it, and it was in limited use. You had to download this unique app, and you had to create awareness about it. Those, for the most part, failed. Then came people that did image recognition, but it required an embedded code like a watermark, a digital watermark. So you had to re-render the media with this special code in the media. And again, it required downloading an app. You can see where this is going, by the way. That kind of is not taken off and not widely embraced. Now you get more people that are interested in using QR codes. They're starting to see them. Largely, this came out of Apple's inclusion of the QR code reader in the latest version of iOS, which was delivered to the Chinese market. And as more of that has some crossover in the US, you're starting to see the use of the QR code here. But it wasn't really well advertised. Most people don't even know that the iOS camera, simply by pointing it at a QR code, will read it. So what you're seeing is a progression that's going to create expectation. Better cameras, higher resolution cameras over the last few years, getting in these devices. And we were the first ones to actually do image recognition through a progressive mobile web app. So no app to download. We solved that app that nobody knew what to do with or where to get, or even that if they downloaded, to get it to keep sticky on their phone. That's a huge problem in the mobile space, just getting people to retain their apps. The half-life is very short. Unless you have a compelling need to use it on a frequent basis, it is unlikely to stick on your phone. So you can spend an awful lot of time doing that. Not going to work. So we went to mobile web, and that works really well. Where we see the bigger opportunity is to now evolve this, and we're doing that. We have an SDK, so anybody who already has an app, but they also have a need or a use case where they could use image recognition, they can include our technology into their phone with our SDK, and we also have a full-end studio on the back end that creates these secondary media experiences that make them measurable as well. And then the ultimate would be building it directly in the OS. So it is in all the cameras, whether it's an Android, which has its own issue because you get multiple flavors of that on different phones, and the iOS device. But if everybody has these fancy phones with multiple cameras, and they're in everybody's hand, and they're in their hands most of the day, and they like to take pictures with them, which they're doing a lot of, it only creates the opportunity for all this to fuse together to where their expectation is, including with augmented reality coming down the pipe, that whenever they point their phone at, they ought to be able to get something out of it. It should recognize it and add some value, information or opportunity to interact in some way. And that's really on the path that we're on. And it's opening up. If you look at, I think some forecast the image recognition market in the next 3 years will be just under $40 billion and double again within 2 years after that, or to $80 billion. And that's, I think, without even thinking about some of these other use cases that could happen, could really blow it up.
So definitely, it's a very interesting market. I would now switch a little bit more towards the secret source, and we want to, learn a little bit about most relevant piece of technology that we're looking at.
Well, for us, it's not one thing. You look at this from an entrepreneurial perspective, a business perspective, and hey, if you had great image recognition, is that enough? No, because then where people fell down, and I'll give you some real key examples, is that most every customer has us create the secondary experience to generate the highest level of engagement. So it wasn't the image recognition, it's after it's recognized, what are you going to show the user? Well, they didn't know what to do or how to do it. So we got really good at that and developed a statistical model that shows what people want to see for a very wide range of categorical products and services. So it drives the highest level of user engagement and conversion. That part, because ultimately that's what they're looking for. and we make that measurable. So image recognition was one piece. The secondary experience is another. Making it measurable is one of the reasons why everybody's moving to digital in advertising in general, because they couldn't get measurable results from other forms of media. We now layer that on so that any form of media is measurable. So those are really, you combine all these things, and it's really addressing each one of these pain points to create a complete end-to-end solution. Solve this it's really a multi-channel media problem. If you're a brand that advertises in more than one channel, and they should, because the results are multiple times higher based on the number of channels that you advertise in. So if you advertise on television and on your website, and you do email campaigns, and you also have out-of-home ads on the street, and maybe you have print advertising as well, how are you going to fuse that all together? Today, it's all completely independent. When we come and provide our service, it can be done with one solution. And to an ad agency, for example, or a brand, they don't want technologies. they want solutions and services that complete the whole thing for them. That's what makes things work. Yeah, they're not technologists, they're operators, and they just need something that works.
So that's very interesting. And for the technologists that watches, here you see how a Silicon Valley entrepreneur is thinking about the market's targeting, the end users. In the end, the technology is a vehicle to get to an end point. But what it is at the center of everything is the customer, and making the life of the customer much better. And that's basically the message is coming here, that even though this company, Reveal, is using pretty advanced technologies, the ultimate value lies in responding to a market need and in the combination of the various things, service and technology, that they have put together. So, but even if that is true, there is something very innovative that your company is doing, and it's basically in the realm of blockchain as well. So we have here a little bit of futuristic overlap of blockchain and computer vision / artificial intelligence technology. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. When we started out, our company is named Reveal Technology. So the mission from day one, and we actually have a very large painting in the office that says, beautiful script, reveal everything. And that's what everybody looks at every day. Where we started was the ability to reveal two-dimensional media, and do that for both still images and do it for moving pictures and video. So you can actually point it at your TV or a still image in a print form, for example. So that was a really big deal, and there wasn't anything out there that could help, we could use to do that. So we built all our own technology to make that happen. It's pretty sophisticated. It works well. The mission continues beyond all that, because we really want to reveal everything. So what's that? It's beyond two-dimensional media. It's people, places, objects, motions, you name it. And that's where there are companies out there now tackling segments of the problem, doing facial recognition or doing retail object recognition or product label recognition or logos and so forth. And they're all working very vigorously to create based on a centralized model, virtually 100%. There's a handful of companies that are doing this now or approaching the blockchain, because the cost of doing this on your own is really almost prohibitive, unless you're either Amazon, Google, Facebook, Alibaba, Microsoft, IBM, people with deep pockets and lots of resources, right? So So what we want to do is kind of democratize that by creating an open source model that allows others to play. And they can train AI models for virtually every other use case imaginable. We were recently in an article in Forbes, and the phone rang off the hook a couple days later, or for 2 days straight, and it just was from companies that wanted to use our service for manufacturing, for agriculture, for satellite imagery. Agriculture was determining the content of non-alfalfa in bales of alfalfa. Manufacturing was identifying defective widgets, if you will, on a production line. In document verification, they wanted to authenticate credentials. And this just goes on. There's one for waste management, and on and on and on. So we're very inspired by what can be done, and those are not going to be addressed by the largest players that today are doing categorical things like that's a dog, a cat, a pair of shoes. They're going a little further to tell you those are Nikes, but it just takes a lot of effort and a lot of images to do that. And the world is full of images, and it changes every day. So we want to open it up to allow anybody to play and have a framework that they can create their own decentralized image recognition based apps or AI based image recognition apps, and then run it on a network that makes it much more affordable for them, as opposed to having a massive array of computing resources to process these, because they're very computer intensive. And it takes a lot of data sets, and it takes a lot of expertise in AI to develop the models for training with. So we'll start out with fundamental model and framework that people can use, and then embellish that, leverage it and tweak it for the next use case and the next use case. And images they upload become available for others to use if they choose, and it begins to feed on itself. So from, in an open source world, it becomes a magnet of a repository for people to go to for image recognition. That's the goal.
So that's very interesting. Let me summarize a little bit. So the purpose here of using blockchain is basically to create an ecosystem where companies that are dealing with very specific problems in computer vision, but also in other parts of machine learning, can have access to the ability to develop those technology, which entails doing training and a number of very expensive operations and a reduced cost. At the same time, they would also have access to more data, more images to feed their training models. I'd like to understand a little bit more the aspects of them having access to more data. How do you provide those data? Like, how do you become the quote-unquote the Google of poor? That you can have, like, if you are a poor entrepreneur with the poor data scientist, you pay $200 a month to Jim, and Jim is gonna give you all the images of the world. I've been there, by the way. The only way we had to do it was to, trying to do it through search engines. So how do you enable that?
Yeah, that's exactly the problem. So, what we want to do is make it easier for people. Anybody that first of all, we're not going to be the ones ourselves going to create data sets, but what we are going to do is provide a service that's integrated into ours that allows you to align yourself or hire resources in various that can actually perform that service for you on your behalf. They can create image data sets and upload those. And there are large, offshore companies that are doing this at scale. We're going to provide access to that so you can define what it is that you want. You can hire the people to do that, and they can capture images using, if you want to call it, a mechanical Turk that allows people to hire people on demand under a specific set of terms and a smart contract with agreed pricing and even a rated expertise in doing that job. So you're getting qualified people to do the job. And this gives people, again, it's a solution, not a technology, not only a technology. So we're going to give you a protocol, a framework that allows you to create a free app, access to a growing repository of images for all kinds of data sets, an infrastructure that gives you a starting point for creating an AI model that advances in an open source world over time. And then, of course, the gas or the processing power to run it and perform all of the training of the model, so you end up with a workable solution. So all these things together create a package of tools that get to end of job with something that you can actually use in a commercial manner and put in the hands of people. And then the other one I put out there is, there's all these people with all these phones. Somebody is going to use these devices to then begin using a crowdsourcing model, I believe, can be done, that can be leveraged here. Why not? For inviting anybody anywhere to help create data sets. I mean, why not?
Okay, I have done it without blockchain, but we'll talk about it another time. As we move towards the end of this interview, there is something that I really wanted to ask you, and it does have to do, again, with where we're going with the future, but also with keeping in mind the end users. And here is my question. So where do you think the end consumer behavior is going? So we are developing these technologies that allow them to do this and that, to take their phone and take a picture, and then they can learn everything about that picture and so on. But do they really want to do that, one? And two, what's going to go on 3 or 5 years from now? How consumer behavior is going to change in the next 3 or 5 years, in your opinion?
Well, you look at, I'll rewind the clock for a moment, and I'm going to say that when this was, I think it was 2000 and maybe 2002 to 4, I worked in a company that was developing optimization algorithms for managing container terminals with lots of container handling equipment, trucks and cranes and forklifts and all these things that move containers around, and optimizing the movement of those in real time. Many different pieces of the puzzle, and against a kind of a multi-dimensional chessboard of containers stacked in a large container yard. If you can envision what that is, it's, you've seen these in movies. They're 100 acres of containers and stacks. We could set up rules and define what was needed to be done, but it actually took almost overnight to process all that. And we kind of looked at ourselves one day and said, collectively, we just said Moore's law. The processing power wasn't there at an affordable price that enabled all that to happen in real time for just anybody. We're now there, and it's just getting better and better, both through the processing power of the mobile devices, the processing power of the server, the throughput in the internet. I mean, we've got 5G coming on board now, I'm sure there'll be advances beyond that, and really smart software that people are developing to be able to address a variety of use cases. And where this is all going, you have the technology moving in that direction, along with the expectation that people just naturally will begin using their devices more and more and more for so many different things. And when we started with the internet, nobody knew what we were going to end up with. It was supposed to be for, originally just doing some fundamental search of information, and then buying books, and look where that went. So, we've come a long way in a very short period of time. But now you have this device, you have AR, VR, image recognition, computer vision, mobile devices with up to 4 cameras now, I think, in some of these devices with various front and back features and so on. They're just getting crazily powerful and effective. You put that in the power of people's hands, along with an expectation of them pointing at different things, layering on information, and making an experience more valuable. You have a very powerful platform for creating anything your imagination allows. And it is going to happen, because we're already there and moving there pretty quickly.
But don't you think there is a risk of overloading the human being cognition?
It takes a sip at their own speed. There are plenty of things that I choose not to do with my tools, and I don't turn everything on all the time. There are those that they're just crazy, and they're on every social media site all day long. I think people will have to put their own regulators on to decide what's right for them. But that's not going to impede the opportunity that exists for anybody to use these tools in a manner that suits them, in a volume that suits them. It's the value that you can create. If I can get something done better, faster, more effectively through a camera to give me answers to what I want to do, it'd be great. I'll give you a quick example. I was at a trade show yesterday, and people were already talking, gosh, I could wish I could point my camera at that person to see who they were in LinkedIn. I'm looking for this guy. Who is that person? And they're looking for certain categories of people. Wouldn't that be kind of like an AR kind of a thing to see, identify somebody and have them pop up?
Basically, a personalized CIA type of thing, You scan around.
Well, yeah, you're touching on another issue that's opening up a whole can of worms about privacy and so forth. So it's up to us, and I think, with GDPR and other acts, I'm sure that will come into play when these tools are out there and creating, delivering more power than we ever anticipated with more capabilities. Then regulation has to come in and opt-in measures as well. I'm sure there's going to be those kind of natural regulations that have to go hand in hand.
So I believe we reached the end of this very interesting conversation. We appreciated so much your enthusiasm and also your optimism. We can clearly see that you're an entrepreneur. And just before we go, one last thing. We touched about this a little bit here and there, but there is a convergence here of many technology. Actually, artificial intelligence is only one, but we also have the augmented reality and so on. Where do you think things are going, and where do you think the big players like the Google and the Facebook will go? Will they kind of, take all of you guys away, or there is a space for you guys to survive and even thrive in this environment?
I think there's going to be plenty of room. It's still very early in the AR VR space. Most of that technology has been focused on hardware, and that has a long way to evolve. In the VR space, the promise of having some Google Glass or device that is ultra lightweight, infinitely powered all day long, so you don't have a big battery pack hanging off and big heavy glasses hanging off, and something that looks like it would scare somebody else and make them run away from you if they turned and looked at you with those devices. It's years away. I've heard some that's even recently when I attended a conference just in the last week at UCLA on AR VR, that people think it's 10 to 15 years away to make it to solve the problems of field of vision and an immersive experience and give you a relative capability to understand where you are, without blinding you. There's a lot of technical hurdles to address. In a very closed sense, there are good use cases that can be done now. One of them I heard was a great pitch from people that are doing VR for training and training pilots, training people in the retail stores. It's a great tool for that. On the AR side, they're coming up quicker. They're still building libraries of things. I think they're at the stage of creating the infrastructure like any other business. If this was back in the days of when Thomas Edison introduced electricity and Tesla was at war with them, it was all about, it wasn't just TVs and toasters. It was forests and telephone poles and creating cable and networks and energy generation. It wasn't the end user appliances that we all take for granted now. It was a long way to the light bulb before we delivered that. It had to be service delivery. That's where we are with the AR, creating infrastructure that allows people to create experiences. And they're coming online, but they haven't really figured out the use case. We're still at, where are we, with Snap's lenses and putting funny mustaches and hats on people. Well, that'll advance more too, but there's more to come, much more to come.
So very good, Jim. It has been a huge pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much, and good luck with the Reveal. It's a very interesting business proposition, and I look forward to seeing more of its success in the coming years. Thank you so much.
Paolo, thanks. It was really a pleasure being here today.